This is Sports Slaw with Lomas Brown, the pro.
And Deb Schneider, I'm the prof. And together, we're the pro and the prof. I gotta stop laughing at that.
I know. I do too, Deb. I do too. And that's my laugh. Every time I hear it.
I know. Even Dan's laughing. I mean, come on. So welcome to Sports Law, episode 24. We've got Dan Loria back. I think you were with us back in May when we actually thought we were going to have high school sports and we were talking about how to do this. Dan is a 19-year football coach, head football coach for Bloomfield Hills for the Blackhawks.
Lomas, all right, go Blackhawks.
Lomas helps coach also. So we have two high school football coaches here. And we have from the High School Athletic Association. And why don't we go to that and then really start talking about it? Is that?
Yeah, I can't hear the sound.
Yeah. I can't hear the sound either. Okay. Well, let's just talk about what Mark said, which is that we're going to postpone football until spring of 2021.
Correct.
And that's from the high school perspective. And I guess my question is to the coaches, what do you think about that? Is that a good move? There's so many parts of this.
I think it's a safe move. And I think, listening throughout the summer to Mark Yule talk to us in the Michigan High School Football Coaches Association, I firmly believe they were doing everything possible to have us play in fall. Mm-hmm. And I was a little surprised, to be honest with you, that they pushed it to spring now after we started. I thought maybe they might delay it. But when you look at everything involved, moving it to the spring, hopefully we're all back in school and Friday night football can be treated the way it's always been treated. The student body's there, because this fall, probably going to have no fans there, maybe not even a marching band. The parents of the kids weren't going to be allowed to come to the game. So taking all that into consideration, I think it's a safe move. And I do know they're pretty sincere about football being separate, pushing spring sports back with very little overlap. So most kids won't have to make that choice between football or a spring sport. And they haven't laid the plan out completely, but everything we've heard of is like we could start the last week of February or right at the beginning of March, push spring sports back. And if you make a run in the playoffs, now some of your kids might have to delay their start in a spring sport, or if you can work it out somehow.
Yeah, Dan, I want you to talk about some of the stress or the strains that have been put on teams, been put on coaches, been put on administrative staffs, trying to make sure us coaches, the student players were safe. Was it a big strain on you getting us ready for that each and every day, having us practice out there the few days that we did, the few weeks we got to practice? Was it a big strain on you?
Yeah, I think the biggest it was in effect that I think that there's still anywhere you're coaching high school football, there's going to be opposition to what we're doing. So in the very you're always wary of people coming by, seeing no masks on, kids grouped together, taking pictures, saying this is what they're doing. We're supposed to be, and it never happened to us, but in the back of your mind, you're trying to do everything right because you don't want to cost this season for the kids. And with the mask on concept, the state was firm about it. We can coach. We have to have our masks on. And it is hard. I'll be the first to, it's 90 degrees out on a turf. It's probably 102, 103. We got the mask on. You're trying to explain to the kids. And, you have a tendency to pull it down so you can talk to them a little bit more. So and then you always have the strain of kids getting sick on your clock. I mean, that's in the back of your mind as well.
So right now, the announcement happened because we were talking a little bit before that we're starting with pads on Monday.
Yeah, we would have, starting Monday, we could go into full pad. And I believe they came out with that because now the hitting would have started. And we were making contact, but holding bags and stuff. And, the receivers being covered by defensive back, they're making contact. But now once the pads go on, it's going to be full contact laying on top of each other. So I believe that's where that statement came out Friday, just to kind of halt everything.
So Dan, I know they pushing it back to spring now, but what are some of the pitfalls to pushing the season back to spring? I mean, it can't all be roses, right? It has to be some shortfalls. It has to be something that's negative about pushing the season back till spring.
I think number one is if, until we see the plan, number one would be if these kids have to make choices.
Yeah.
And we always say that's part of life, but that's unfortunate, especially, for these seniors coming up and, as juniors, a lot of them missed their spring sports last year if they played them. And now what are they going to do? It's going to be football or that. And that's why I believe it's going to come down to them really separating the two. I know weather we have to deal. We're not down south where we truly could have 4 seasons. So I think, and I think Mark Ewell brought up a real good point. He said for years, spring coaches have been complaining that we start too early. And I do the same thing. Like, my coaches coach some spring sports too. And the weather's terrible. They can't even get outside. They're supposed to play games get postponed, fields frozen for baseball, softball. So he said, well, now we're going to get our answer. Football is the one sport. Who cares what the weather's like? You'll go out there. So it's going to be cold. We're going to do the reverse. We're going to go from it being hot to cold to starting cold to getting into warm weather.
Hey, so the real challenge won't be for the players. It's going to be for us coaches on that sideline when it's real cold out there.
At practice, absolutely. I'll make it fun of us when we walk out there.
And the fans. I will tell you, I got a winter coat, a long winter coat, just to watch spring lacrosse.
Oh, yeah. So it's that part of it too. Then and who knows with our weather, but we could have. Who knows when it's going to get warm for us anyways come the spring. But I think that's probably the biggest one. And then, we're all in this together. So I they're going to have to cut seasons short. So I'm sure we're not playing 9 games. They haven't, Wednesday, they're supposed to make an announcement with us and they didn't say exactly what it was. It could be what we can do from now till the season, or it could be what their plan is for the spring. It sounds like probably play 6 games. Now, whether everybody makes the playoff or if you're 3-3 or better, you're in. Then they'll go to playoff. That's how they can begin eliminating teams. Kids can go to their spring sports when they do start. But they also said, on the flip side, baseball seasons may not be as long. Instead of 20 games, they may play 14 games.
So really, if you are a 2-sport athlete, and a lot of these high school kids are, if you're a good athlete, you're going to be a 2-sport athlete. So we're saying we're going to give them a chance to play both sports. You don't think there's going to be too much of an overlap? I mean, from a football coach perspective, are you going to let your starting quarterback play baseball at the same time?
Well, that's where the issue.
That's on the spot.
I was just having this conversation with some of my coaches earlier today. And said, under these conditions, you got to bend to a degree in certain areas. And the hardest part about football is they all got to be there when we're putting in offensive stuff, or it's just not the same. I would not be opposed to if somehow we could work with, the baseball team, lacrosse team, track, where the kids could do both somehow, some way. If that's maybe us practicing at night under the lights a couple days a week, I'd be okay with that. I just whatever suits it. But I don't want to say. I guess it would be kind of selfish, but we need them there offensively. Or just
we do.
Right. I mean, whatever the team is running, we got to be having them prepared, especially the quarterback spot. I'm lucky he's not a pitcher, so.
I know, Dan. I can see that hard being a quarterback, but I know Ray has the video ready. I definitely want to hear what Mark Ewell had to say how he announced this.
Yes.
Today we're going to provide an update on fall sports for high schools in the state of Michigan, those member schools of the MHSAA. For the last 155 days, since that day back last March, where all of our worlds changed due to COVID-19. That was the date that we had to stop all of our winter tournaments. And soon after, when schools were canceled, as was the rest of the sports season, our attention turned to this fall. How could we come up with a plan so that those kids, especially the seniors in the class of 2021, would not have to deal with the same heartbreak and challenges that our seniors did last spring? Today we're going to talk about football. And earlier this afternoon, the MHSAA Representative Council, our board of directors of superintendents, principals, athletic directors, and coaches, made the very difficult decision to postpone football in Michigan until the spring of 2021. For the last 155 days, all of us have lived with a great deal of uncertainty. This virus has changed on almost a weekly basis in terms of the data, the spread, and most importantly, how it's impacted people that live here in our state and our families. As our board, in consultation with the governor's office and state health department officials, looked at all the data and information, there were just too many unknowns and uncertainties where we could move ahead and play football and do it with a clear conscience and without that pit in our stomach. Do know that our other fall sports are scheduled to move forward because, simply put, they just don't carry the same risk levels that the hand-to-hand, face-to-face, every play contact in football requires of our young people that play this great game. Some would say that this really doesn't hit home, that those of us who are administrators and leaders often make decisions without kids in mind. And I can tell you that in this case, the exact opposite is true. I'm not only here speaking with you today as the director of the MHSAA, but as someone who's a parent of a senior football player. We've done everything possible to try and find that pathway forward for our football kids this fall. And we simply ran out of time and with the evidence to be able to do that as safely as we needed to do. So while the day will certainly be a disappointment to all of our football players, coaches, and families, of which the Ewells are part of that, just know that we're going to take today's disappointment and put all of our effort and energy into giving our kids the best possible football experience imaginable in the spring of 2021. I encourage all of you to continue to do the right things, to mask up, to wash your hands, to be smart about this virus. And if we continue to do the right things, there will be that time where we can play all of our sports, football included, as safe as we possibly can. Thank you.
Yeah.
I didn't expect that. I didn't expect him to get emotional like that, but I mean, he was speaking as a father. You know, he said that. He was speaking, and that was real. It was a tough decision. Like he said, they had been pondering it for the last 155 days, and how it was just so fluid and how it was changing. You know, and he just used his moral compass, and he knew that was the right thing to do. Wow, that was powerful. That was powerful.
He had an interview the other day in the paper, and he's talking about like sitting on a staircase, and his son's, that's his middle son. He's actually a quarterback at DeWitt. And the door was open, and he was looking into it, and he goes, I had to pick up the phone, and before I made the announcement, I wanted to tell my son, you know, and you could just tell in the article, he's crying about it and stuff like that. Because I firmly believe he did everything. His Zooms were awesome. I mean, the way he presented it, you felt confident. I even told my coach, I go, if things get pushed back, we play in the spring, it's no fault on him. I mean, he was doing everything possible. And now there's always going to be like the repercussions of what's happening in the spring, you know, and to answer Lomas, your question about, you know, some other pitfalls, I think this has got to take into consideration. I know these are choices the kids made, but they're planning on playing the fall. There's kids graduating early to go to college now to be on a team. And, you know, there's some heartbreaking quotes in the paper that's it. I'm going to be gone. I can't play in the spring. This was my last chance to play with my friends. Now it's taken away. That's taken away from me. So those are some tough ones too.
Just real fast, Deb. I mean, if this would have been back in 1980, that would have been my case because I graduated. I was done in January of my senior year, and I left for the University of Florida in March. So again, if my senior year, if this would have happened to me my senior year, I would have ended up missing my senior year of football. And you never know what would have happened scholarship wise, and who knows what else. Yeah, I completely understand.
Yeah, that's this is going to affect people that we don't know, that will never know that they were affected by it because they could have had a breakout year. They could have gotten the scholarship. And we don't know. We know Lomas his junior year was playing trombone.
Yeah. Good one, Deb.
Had to throw that in there.
Deb, you hit it right on the head when you said about you don't know about the breakout year. Look at the quarterback from LSU. He had a bad junior year. They said he never got drafted. If he would have missed his senior year, here he was the number one pick in the NFL. Things could have been a whole lot different.
Right. And we'll never know. The other side of that is something, and we talked about this when in our last podcast, the myocarditis, which is the heart disease that, it's a viral inflammation of the heart caused by a virus. And we know COVID-19, I was looking up some of the stats today, 20% of the victims of COVID-19 end up with this myocarditis. We think it's okay. Many of them are going to recover. Many of them are going to recover quickly. But I also want to point out something and just say a couple names. Hank Gathers, Reggie Lewis. These were young guys.
Yeah.
And this could happen. So when we talk about the disappointment of the kids, I also want to say they'll be alive.
Yeah.
Right. No, it's that safety's got to come first. And we know when we were kids, you're not thinking that. That's not going to happen. I'm not going to get it. Don't worry, coach. I'm going to be fine and stuff like that. And safety has to be number one. That's where the whole thing from Mark Yo came from. I mean, it's and to say that conscience, that pit in your stomach, we all would have had it walking out there. And had they had to stop, I don't know if they would have said, okay, let's continue in the spring. We tried.
Right. So I agree.
I'm okay. We'll never know what would have happened in the fall. I'm okay with that. All we know is we can go at it in the spring, and hopefully we're all back in school. I think that's the main thing. If we're all back in school, I think people are going to feel a whole lot better with that.
Yeah, Dan, I think that's a good point too, because I just think if they would have had to stop and restart, the restart probably would have cost more, and trying to get it insured, start the testing up again, because you don't know where the players have been in between that restart. So you're right about that. I think that's probably would have been their worst case scenario, would have been to have to start the season and stop it, then try to resume it again. So they're doing the right thing. And Mark Ewell, he should be commended about making the choice. It's affecting a lot of kids, and like you said, in a lot of different ways. But, he's a father, so he knew the side to err on, which was the side of caution.
See, and I think, with what's hard, like if you go like to the western side of the state, like in like Kalamazoo area, and look at their newspapers, there's some coach reactions that are negative, and some kids that are negative, because right there in Indiana, which is close to them, they're playing in the fall. So as a kid, let's face it, a kid isn't going to wait. If they're playing in Indiana, why can't I play here? I mean, that's how.
Well, a lot of sports teams. I was listening today. AAA hockey teams are, driving down to Ohio to play. So the other states, and that's one of the things when we have such a disjointed response to this, that we can cross the border and everything's okay. It doesn't change the safety aspects of it. It doesn't change anything. But right now I was, the MHSAA affects about 35,000 athletes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And, so we want to be safe. One of the questions I have, though, is in terms of if we're pushing this to spring, resources. How do we play? How do we practice? Because even if the season doesn't start until, say, April, as opposed to normally starting in March, and we're playing football in February. There's still practice. We still need practice. We still need that. Are we competing for resources for field?
That's going to be right. We were talking about that, and I don't know, because we know there's still snow in March sometimes.
Right.
So I don't know how if obviously we'll have to clear a way to practice, but because basically the way it would be set up, we have about 2.5 weeks before our first game anyways. So if they started the last week of February, you're looking at your first game probably the first week and a half into March. But there'll be that weather, and sure, you can go inside and practice in the gym and whatnot, but it's not the same. But that's going to probably be the biggest issue is rain, all that we're fine with. But snow on the ground, you got to kind of move some things around, or you just practice in it. I mean, there's been games years ago or in playoffs, and we've had some snow games, and you're playing it.
Well, just a quick follow-up. Right, a quick follow-up on that. What about the lacrosse? What about the soccer? What about the other teams, the baseball teams that are trying to use the same fields or the same gyms? Or that's where I'm.
Yes, that's where you're going to add another. I look at those, if we're trying to do our 4-man workout for football in the spring, you can almost forget it. I tell them, we got to find a hallway or something, because spring sports are in the gym. They can't go on the baseball field. So the only thing you kind of hope is that by pushing spring sports back, the weather will be better, and they won't have to go inside nearly as much. And with us, we would only go inside if there was lightning, because we'd have to. So, and really nobody. And the thing I don't know about, which create more problems on the field, is will they have JV and freshman football? We're landlocked. If we're going to have JV and freshmen, would they practice? I don't know where they'll practice. I mean, if we use the softball field, we use the baseball field for the younger guys. So I don't know if it's just going to be a varsity thing in the spring, or if it's going to be all 3 levels, which they could share with us, because but in our situation, we still have 2 high schools. We have 1 high school, we have 2 facilities. So we have a turf field at Lasser still. So we could go there easily, and lacrosse could go there, vice versa. But not every district's going to have that opportunity. So that's a good play. That's going to be another issue. Everyone's squeezed in. And with volleyball, what happens if they have to push volleyball to the spring? Now you can forget about the gym altogether.
Yeah, it's.
They're going to Wednesday about volleyball and boys soccer, and it's probably more with volleyball because you can't even get in the gyms right now, and it's indoors. So what are they going to do with that? They're going to push that to the spring too.
Right, which is the next, and they really, and I do want to point out for all of our listeners that they said football is probably the one that we're most concerned about, followed by then the volleyball. And when we start talking about tennis or swimming or, some of these sports where you're just not in contact, that's a lower risk. And I think we're going to see some of the announcements later, but probably not the same. I'm thinking maybe not the same.
Right. And swimming's another, because they, right now you're going to have to rent an outdoor pool somewhere until they let the kids go back into school.
Right.
So that's another decision they got to work on.
Because swimming is a non-contact sport. I was a swimmer. Swimming is a non-contact sport.
Right. And I don't know if they're going to, because I thought maybe Friday our governor was going to open up the gyms, and then that would have made swimming been done. Now they can go back inside. And I think our schools are swimming at a pool right now, but I'm sure there's schools out there that right now they can't go rent from a country club a pool for the girls to go swim. So, and the boys, that's another. There's all these things that you don't kind of think about until you get more involved. Like basketball, they said part of that process would be cutting basketball down probably 5 or 6 games. And what if they can't start on time? Because there's argument basketball could be worse than football, because now they're right next to each other all the time, and they're inside. So.
Yeah, but there's even the challenges of everything that you do at your school. They could be A+, but then again, our first game of the season is against Pontiac, and we don't know if they have the resources to test or to do the cleaning or, the sanitizing, because it's not cleaning, it's sanitizing of the equipment or, different things that they're going to need to do. So, you have challenges with that. other schools, them being able to comply. And I know it's about the economics of things too. That has a big play into what happens, how schools could do certain things, how schools can't do certain things. So, you know, it'd be interesting to see what happens in a situation like that, or a school just basically not being able to even start up in the spring. What happens if Pontiac isn't ready in the spring to play ball? Then what happens? So it's just a lot of things. It's just a lot of different things that could affect us even starting in the spring.
And that's like with a few of the districts that decided, you know, a few days ago, up to a few weeks ago, to decide not to play any fall sports. You know, I couldn't, and you know, like Ferndale was on our schedule, and Ferndale decided not to play any sports. You know, you can't really get mad at them because they may just not have, like you said, Lomas, they might not have the ability to do all the checking, to check them stuff. So they're pulling themselves out for the safety of not only their own players but the opponents too. So which I understand.
Okay, so I have a nomination for the worst job right now, and that is school superintendent.
Oh yeah, because
having to make these decisions,
yep,
pretty much in a vacuum, and you're wrong. You're just wrong. Because whatever you do, the players want to play, the kids want to play, but you run the risk of something happening. You know, just it's not easy. One of the things I wanted to ask about was waivers. Are you requesting waivers? And where do you see the waivers going?
As far as I know, there was no waivers. We weren't doing anything with waivers, or they had to fill out a because of the pandemic and people not being able to go to doctors and stuff, and then being backed up. You were allowed to use last year's physical, opposed to having a brand new physical. So as long as you had a physical during the school year last year, you were clear. But they had a health form, and it was just a health form that basically you checked off. Which, looking back, that's probably kind of a waiver. You're signing off on it, but it's, you know, they're not going to call it a waiver. But that was instead of turning your physical, you had to turn that copy in. So looking at some of the questions, it probably is kind of like a waiver.
Yeah. So Deb, Dan, I wanted to ask you, again, you're the high school, you're head coach at Bloomfield High School, but you are a teacher too. So I just wanted you to just say, or just give us an idea how you feel being a teacher going back. Well, no, because we're out. We're actually out. Yeah, that didn't. So what are your feelings? Did you want to do it? Would you rather do online teaching, or are you type, would you rather be hands-on being there, since you are a head coach and you're used to being hands-on with students? Would you have rather been in class? What's your feeling on that?
Mine is, hopefully no administrators from Bloomfield are listening to this right now, but I wanted to go back. I need structure. I mean, I'll do my job at home. It won't be as effective as in the classroom. I mean, I'm a rule follower. That you put me in my classroom, it's a lot better. And I mean, I didn't even think twice about if I get it. You know, I wanted to be around. We were already around the kids. I mean, we went 7 weeks in the summer, and then we went the first week of football, and we were around them all the time. And so, I mean, I'm a little bummed not being there, because I love teaching. I love being around the kids. And, you know, obviously now I just see the football players, not the rest of the student body. I understand the reason why they're not doing it, but I would much rather have been in school. I look forward to when we can get back to being with the kids again.
Yeah.
I do know the mask probably would have been an issue, because the kids had to wear it, and I know how high school kids are. Would have been constantly saying, either pull it up or put it on, and that would have been a nonstop.
Go ahead, Deb. Or did Deb freeze?
I froze for a minute. Did you have any cases? I mean, you've been around these kids. Both of you have been around the kids for 7-8 weeks now.
Yeah.
Are you aware of any cases? I mean, you both look great.
Yeah, no.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't been, Dan. I haven't heard about anything district, or, you know, so, I mean, yeah, knock on wood. Here's wood here. You know, but I don't know.
That's across the board too. All sports. I talk to our trainer every morning, and John would say, no, we're clear. And they would do the temperature check. I mean, the questions probably you get any place you're going into. Have you been around anybody? Do you show any symptoms? But we did a temperature check all through the summer and through the first week, and nobody was sent home. And we heard of no cases at all either.
Yeah, which is good too.
Yeah,
which is great. Yeah, and here we're showing all the questions that are being asked.
Yeah,
frequently asked questions, and that. So there's a lot going on. MHSA is really doing a good job with getting the information out there, doing this. I know a lot of the districts are looking at waivers. I know a lot of the districts, some of the school districts in Michigan. And I just want to mention that because, of course, I have to be a little proffish and talk about law for half a second. But, whether or not the waivers are actually going to be enforceable. And the interesting thing about that is it's going to be a state law question. So a waiver in Michigan might not be enforceable in Ohio and vice versa. And then we have to start looking at those waivers as far as the fact that we're saying we're going to acknowledge the risk, we're assuming the risk, and then we're saying we're not going to sue, which is really the three parts of any waiver.
She opened the question then, Dan. We had a game against Massillon, Ohio this year. So you saying that if we would have played Massillon, if we went to Massillon, Ohio under that waiver, then what are you saying? What would not have happened there?
Well, you'd have to look at state law to see if somebody got sick, and that's the other thing. You'd have to be able to prove that they got COVID because of that particular game, which is a pretty high standard at this point, given the fact that we're not in a bubble. The Michigan waiver might not hold up in Ohio, or the Ohio waiver might not hold up in Michigan. It's a different state, and these are state law questions.
And Ohio was one that's where I thought when they were making an announcement on Friday, that's what I thought it was going to be, because Ohio we've been kind of with Ohio on whatever they did, we did, and they dropped the 6 games. That's why we lost. We were going to play Massillon week 7. So they went to 6 games, everybody in the playoffs, and the playoffs start week 7. That's the route I thought we were going. And that's why I guess when I say I was taken by, I wasn't expecting that. That's where I thought we were going with it.
Yeah. It's just funny how, like you say, each state, is really up to them how they want to set things out. So, and like I say, they're trying to push to get these kids. And why they're trying to do it is for the kids. But again, I'm the type, I'd rather for us to, like I say, err on the side of the caution. You know how Governor Whitmer has been. She's been stern about things that she's done, about rules that she's implemented. Again, with her leadership, we're not as bad as we can be. It was terrible for a while. So I just think on her leadership, things are, she'll really have us in a good place, whatever a good place is going to look like.
And I think our numbers still represent at the beginning.
Yeah.
It was so bad in the beginning for us. That's why our numbers were, we were one of the worst, and things have gotten so much better from a number perspective.
Yeah.
Right. It was interesting. We did a podcast with Rob Parker from Los Angeles. And at that time, I believe, Lomas, you and I asked him about why why California was doing so much better than Michigan. And it has completely flipped now.
Yeah. But their governor came in. Remember, Deb, early, he was strict with them. And I just
very strict.
But again, it goes back, and we could get political about things, but it all comes from the top down. So the governors are feeling pressure from upstairs, and they feel pressure to have to do certain things that they don't. And sometimes I just think they think irrationally. It comes back to bite them. I mean, it really does. So this is, you're right. They were doing well for a while, and they just surged out there.
Right. Well, I think overall what we're saying here is we have different state laws, we have different state governors, different state politics. We have different, then we get to the schools, we get to the school districts, and we start talking about the superintendents, and we start talking about the individual schools. And the bottom line is, and I know we're running out of time here, so I guess my last thing is, any final thoughts on this? I worry about the kids going to school from the physical standpoint. I worry about the kids not going to school from the mental health standpoint.
And I think that's where, I think the worst thing would have been if we started and then we had to pull everybody out of school.
Mhm.
Start with that again. So I think this is another one. I think this is a safe way about going about, business. But I think from a mental health standpoint of the kids, I think it's important that, I'll speak for football, that once school starts, now it'll be different. That's what I was trying to explain to the football kids, because originally you're going to have a choice in our district: go to school, stay home. Now we're all in a boat of staying home. It's going to be different than it was. That hit us last year unexpectedly, so we did our best. Now you're going to go to school every day. Just like, I'm going to wake up and first hour starts at 7:30. I have to be on my computer. The kids have to be on the computer. Either I present information, and then once they do the work, I don't have to be staring at them, but I have to have my computer open so they can ask questions and such. And that'll go through the day. Then I'll have my one period that's a prep period that I could close the computer and go do whatever I want, but then I have to be back for the next hour. So I do, for the mental aspect of it, I think it's going to be important that we continue doing off-season stuff. When school gets out, 4 o'clock, we're up there. Lomas says the offensive lineman. I'm working with the quarterback or whatnot, just to get the kids out of the house. I know I talked to a lot of parents. I know that's what the parents want too, just to get them out so they don't feel locked up. Because talking to a few coaches this weekend, it felt like things were right again. There was a short period of time with them, but they're smiling, having a good time. They're with their buddies now. We're coaching. It's, I always say it's one of the best places on earth is football. You take all those kids from all the different backgrounds and such, and watching them work together, and it all of a sudden is taken away again. But I know we'll get there. We'll be doing it again, but I think it's important that we continue to do this, and I know we will. I got a great staff, great guys. We'll continue doing this until if it's kickoff and we start in February or whatever it's going to be. Because it is the mental part. I got 2 daughters, and oh my gosh, they're going crazy in the house. Can I do this? Can I do this? Can I do this? And my one daughter is going to be going to Michigan State, so we're letting her go. We're not going to hold her back and such. It's what you want, and I want her to have that experience too.
Yeah. I guess my final thoughts on the whole thing is, it does suck, but and not just, if I take the kids out the equation, I look at the coaches and I look at the teachers and, and their secondary family, somebody that may be older that may have something.
Mm-hmm.
It's the right thing, because we do get this under control, especially until they get a vaccine or get something for this. We do have to start getting this under control. So I do understand. Sometimes we have to protect, Dan, I always say this, sometimes like I say, coaches have to protect players from themselves, and sometimes we need protecting from ourselves sometimes. So, it does suck, but hopefully, we can get it under control, and maybe spring is possible for us.
And that's well said. That's where I wanted to get away from that selfish, because I'll be honest with you, Saturday I was selfish. I'm like, they're not playing. I was depressed, this and that. I started thinking about, you got to think about these kids' grandparents, their own parents that are sick. If they go, because they say for whatever reason the kids don't spread it amongst themselves like the adult population does. But if they're passing to somebody, so it's the safest thing.
Yeah. It's a really, really tough decision. Hopefully we'll get back to normal sometime soon, because if nothing else, Lomas and I want to stop talking about COVID and coronavirus.
Yes.
Oh, I know.
Yes, we want to talk about playoffs and and touchdowns and celebrations and parades
and CBAs and all that fun legal stuff that goes along with everything.
You're right. Yes, you're right.
Yeah.
And that's what sports does for us, right? Sports takes our mind off some of this crazy stuff, but sports is intermingling with this virus right now. So sports can't take us away, because it's kind of intertwined with this virus right now.
It's completely intertwined right now. So many things are happening. But so, Dan, thank you so much for your time. Yes. Lomas, thank you for your time again today. And, go Lions, go Green, go Blackhawks.
All right. Thank you. I appreciate it. I always look forward to it.
This is great. And check us out on sportslaw.com. Check us out on Facebook. Check us out on SoundCloud. Thank you, everybody, for listening tonight.